Good morning, everyone. Today session on Introduction to Clinical Engineering will be taught by our guest lecturer from Universitas Indonesia, Dr. Ahyahudin Sodri. Dr. Ahyahudin Sodri is now quite active in the Association for the Medical Devices Manufacturer of Indonesia, or ASPAKI. He has obtained his doctoral degree in 2017 from Universitas Indonesia, before which he obtained his magister or master in sensor system technology from Karlsruhe, Germany, and before that he obtained his bachelor degree in electrical engineering from Universitas Jenderal Ahmad Yani. Today's lecture is attended by our students from biomedical engineering, second semester, eighth semester, and as well as some lecturer. Without further ado, I would like to present Dr. Ahya Sodri. Thank you.
Program. I got the opportunity. I applied for a doctoral degree at Münster University. Maybe if you know, it is close to Frankfurt. And then at the same time, I applied also to Agpa G5 as healthcare industries. And I was very lucky that both accepted me. Münster University admitted me for the doctoral degree, and Agpa G5 also accepted me as their employee. But during that time, I decided that I prefer to work for industry, not to continue with my doctoral degree. The reason for that is based also on my experience that Indonesia, on my opinion, from that time till now, is suffering to have, let's say, industrial capability in produce something, in create something, especially for the medical devices. And I think it was the correct decision that I gained my industrial experience in designing, developing, launching the medical product, especially the medical imaging, as maybe you know, digital radiography, digital radiology. And then I work around countries in Europe, North America during my duties at the time. So I work also with other, let's say, leading healthcare manufacturer like Siemens in Germany, other manufacturer in other countries in Europe, as well as also some medical devices industries in America that my company had cooperation with other company in developing medical devices. Okay, I hope, let's say, this short introduction give you an overview about, let's say, my experience, and also give you some, let's say, impression how, let's say, what could be done by biomedical engineer. Because if you ask me right now, I still define that I'm a biomedical engineer. And then I had, let's say, complete range experience working in hospital environment, like I said before. I had experience work for, let's say, medical device industries till now, of course. And then I have also experience work as a consultant for hospital when they, let's say, preparing their project. Ministry of Health also for both on the development of medical devices, development of regulation, and also for, like I said, some agencies when they want to create or develop project in Indonesia. And now I'll try, let's say, to focus to my task that Padedi asked me to share with you, that how, let's say, as biomedical engineer, you could do something. Padedi, please correct me if I'm wrong. Basically, what you expect that from me is biomedical engineer as clinical engineer. That's right?
Yes, yes. How can
Okay.
biomedical engineer play a role as clinical engineer?
Okay.
Ahya?
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Padedi. And if you ask me what mean of clinical engineer, of course, you will be easily find in some reference. You can just type it Googling, or you open some lecture book. And when I define myself as clinical engineer, basically, I was, let's say, inspired by Prof. Brongino. He is a professor in biomedical engineer from Connecticut University and Trinity College. And I met him because I basically just to flashback that before I decided to study in Germany, uh, I had an expectation to study in the state in in USA under supervision of Prof. Brongino, and I got invitation from him. I met him, had some discussion, but due to some technical problem that I had to wait for 1 year and so on, and then I decided to apply to other program in Germany, and then because they admitted me, and then I switched. Okay, this is the story, but still, clinical engineer is really, let's say, also my passion, and I have done some, let's say, clinical job in the past, and still till now I do it. Okay, and basically I have some, let's say, comprehensive information about what the role of biomedical engineering in the hospital. uh, this is, let's say, based on the real situation in Indonesia, and unfortunately this slide is in bahasa Indonesia, not in English, but I think is anybody here is native English?
No,
No native.
no native here.
Okay,
Yes.
no native. Okay, if no native, and then Pak Dedi, I prefer to use this slide, other slide rather than this slide. I will
Okay, no
use other
problem.
slide.
Yeah,
No
yeah,
problem. Yeah.
as you like. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Stop share. Okay. Because this one basically is to generic one, and I have, let's say, more specific to Indonesian case. Is appear on your screen?
Yes,
Is
yes.
your screen? Is yeah. Okay. So this is my presentation that usually I use to educate hospital how to improve their capability in medical technology management. Because as might be you know that in Indonesia, all hospital should meet the accreditation from National Hospital Accreditation, and we call it CARS, Komite Akreditasi Rumah Sakit. This is in Indonesia, and till now I think still many hospital is struggling are struggling to meet this requirement, and therefore if you decide that you would be a clinical engineer, and I think it's your opportunity to contribute to our nation in developing, in improving the quality of medical devices management in the hospital, and it's one of role of clinical engineer. Okay, I will not discuss with this one. Okay. So I think I will. This is the situation, you know, that right now, based on the data that I got from the field, for all they are no hospital has let's say from the hospital instance less than around let's say 50% on the preventive maintenance that already, let's say, fulfilled, but still far away. And basically, all of the medical devices that would be used in the hospital should be, let's say, tested. Okay, and it's also, let's say, although its highest score in this point, 80% this practice is doing in the hospital, but only 80%. And most hospital like in doing inspection for the for device, for the medical devices that they have. So you can imagine, you know that today the quality, the medical services is really depend to the device. And I can imagine today that physician or medical doctor will treat patient without the technology. And then you can imagine if this device is not inspected correctly, not checked by engineer, what you could, let's say, expected. How about, let's say, the quality of this device? And again, hospital is lacking in doing inventory. But you know, the inventory is, let's say, the clue. If you want to have good, let's say, management, you need to have a good inventory. And of course, the last but not the least is about the organization. I think yes, in this organization is everything, including I think man, money, matter, and so on. So still, a lot of hospitals struggling with this one. And based on this, may I conclude in the beginning that basically hospital need biomedical engineer. Hospital need help from clinical engineer. That's the point that I to open this slide. Okay, so let's come to the theoretical part. How if 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 you agree that hospital need biomedical engineer, hospital need clinical engineer to help them to manage medical devices, to meet the requirement for patient safety, to meet the requirement from national accreditation. And then the question is, what should be done by clinical engineer? And now I come to this point. So if you look to this chart, basically we could see there are some steps on the life cycle of medical devices or medical technology. When these devices, when this technology, maybe you have heard about the topic of health technology assessment. I don't know. Basically, not all technology invented by engineer automatically, let's say, will be allowable to be used in the hospital environment. Because basically, they should pass that we call it health technology assessment. For instance, robotic surgery is no question that human or patient will get benefit from the robotic surgery. But the question is whether this technology is fulfill, let's say, the economic analysis. From the safety, you may say yes, but from the economic, maybe not. And health technology assessment basically will investigate about the new technology, whether it is suitable to use or not in the healthcare environment, such as hospital, from the consideration of the technology point of view, economic point of view, medical point of view, and also ethical point of view. And assume that this technology, let's say, has passed this investigation or this assessment, and then before one hospital, yeah, use this technology, basically they should what they call it planning and need assessment. And unfortunately, on the reality, yeah, still some hospital, when they want to acquire new technology, just they, let's say, decide by accident. What I mean by accident is just, let's say, the management get request from the medical doctor and then say, okay, we buy it without any, let's say, deep assessment that I call it need assessment. And later on, if, let's say, finish with this phase, basically we'll go to the procurement, yeah, and then come to in the procurement, we will discuss more detail what should be happen, what the role. I mean, here is specifically for clinical engineer, let's say, during the procurement process. Now, from this process, go to the installation, commissioning, training, and operation. And you know, technology, when it was designed, is not dedicated to be used for, let's say, 1,000 or 100 years. When I work for the industry, we know that as designer or as developer, we, let's say, come to the number of year, and basically industry commit not, let's say, to design the product for using more than 12 years, and in some case it is designed for less than 10 years, and therefore it will also influence the, let's say, utilization of this device at hospital environment, that at hospital, yeah, as clinical engineer or as biomedical engineer, you should also evaluate which kind of technology that should be disposal. And again, is need the role of clinical engineer, because clinical engineer basically is a multi, let's say, discipline people, that they know about the engineering, they know about the medical application of the technology, and and clinical engineer should know also changing. I don't know whether the content of economic analysis or life cycle cost analysis is already integrated at Swiss German University or not, but I believe it should be integrated. Then you may do, let's say, the cycle, not only engineer. So basically, you should have knowledge and in engineering, you should have, let's say, knowledge, medical application of medical devices, and then you should have also some knowledge in doing economic or financial analysis, and that's, let's say, the basic of the or the core competence of clinical engineer, from my opinion. Pak Dedi, how we will manage this lecture today? So, is do I sorry, do I should presentation for 1 hour, or you will limit to 40 minutes, and then the rest is for question and answer?
For 40 minutes is possible, then the rest for question and answer.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So let's me continue for next 10 or 15 minutes. Yeah. Okay. So again here, the purpose, let's say, the health technology management in the healthcare environment is to keep safety, quality, and cost effective. This way, I said before that as clinical engineer, basically you should have basic knowledge, yeah, in the medical application of medical devices, how to make patient safety, and then quality from the engineering perspective, and cost effective from the economic. This is the three requirement. Okay, let's start. What is expected? Let's say if you are working in the healthcare environment, in the hospital environment, basically you should be involved on the planning process. The planning, let's say when the hospital want to, let's say, develop new services. Let's say before they didn't have, let's say, radiotherapy, for instance. Hospital want to have, let's say, oncology center, for instance, or hospital want to expand existing operating theater from 2 operating room to double, yeah, or maybe triple, and you need to be involved, and you should be involved, because again, as clinical engineer, you have knowledge to support the hospital goal to provide better services for patient. Of course, your contribution from the engineering perspective, from the device perspective, but not limited to that. Because imagine hospital want to acquire new technology, let's say linear accelerator. Is not talking about technology itself, but when these devices, when this machine want to be installed in the hospital environment, basically hospitals should do deep analysis about the feasibility, like I said before. And also, this new technology will lead to the some consequence of the, let's say, civil work preparation or mechanical electrical preparation. For instance, because linear accelerator will, let's say, during the operation, will emit the dangerous radiation for human, and then you have to design specific bunker, and then you have role to lead this project. And for this device, you need electricity, big power, and you have to evaluate whether the existing electricity supply is sufficient or not. If yes, how to connect between, let's say, the proposed building with the existing electrical connector, and so on and so on. You see, a lot of things engineer analysis should be not should be done during the planning. Come back again to the need analysis that I showed to you in the previous slide. So in many large project case, in many, let's say, big project, basically you should do, let's say, I would say, need analysis for complete hospital system. For instance, one hospital or maybe one department. And here is very important that when you do planning, you have to refer to the generic standard here. What mean of generic standard in Indonesia is to the standard of MOH, Ministry of Health. Ministry of Health, basically, they have some recommended devices for certain medical services. For instance, like I said before, if the hospital want to develop new oncology services, and then a hospital may refer to the generic standard devices from the MOH. And also here, you need also to do benchmarking to the other existing hospital. For instance, when I was involved on the one big project to develop a proton beam therapy project, analysis of proton beam therapy project in Indonesia, during that time until now also, these services is not exist in Indonesia. Therefore, what I did before is I did benchmarking with the services in abroad, in Singapore, for instance, in UK, in Germany, or in USA. That's what I mean with the example. And again, on 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 the other level, you have also to consult this planning with the population situation. For instance, again, I take the example about the linear, let's say, oncology center. You should have some data about, let's say, uh, the 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 epidemic, the demography, and so on and so on, to make this planning, this, let's say, hospital aim to create, to develop new services is really meet with the population need. Maybe hospital want, for instance, to double the room of operating room, but if it doesn't support by the, let's say, the requirement or the need from population, maybe you should, let's say, not continue with this planning. And come to the number three, uh, you should do some analysis or interpretation to make, let's say, come to the list of equipment if you are working in this topic. But later on, you will come to the other gate, yeah, that you should do, let's say, some gap, upper gap, and comparison with the budget. Sorry. For instance, maybe you got the 100 list of the devices that need to support new services of hospital. But the question is, How about the economic situation? Whether hospital have budget to buy all of this list, or whether from the economic analysis is profitable or not if this is private hospital. Sorry to say that private hospital basically will focus to budget. Maybe public hospital, because they got support finance from the government, is not, let's say, the big attention. But for a private hospital, really they will see about the budget situation. And as engineer, as clinical engineer, you expect that you will come with the, let's say, analysis about the priority, the list of priority. And from my experience, work, let's say, for many assignments, come from hospital or also from the national and international agency. I think they need expertise, our expertise as clinical engineer. Here you see more on the practical life. I mean, Pak Dedi also asked me how, if let's say, consultant. This is one of example. If you are working as consultant for healthcare project consultant, basically you will be involved on some stage of the project. For instance, during the feasibility study, during the master plan stage, and during the engineering design stage. And here, as engineer, you have to do some, let's say, work or job. They expect it as outcome or deliverable document, I will call it. Deliverable document is usually used as outcome of consultant. But you know, to come to this outcome, you have to do some job that I call it process. And to do this process, you need some input. In the feasibility study, basically, you should come with outcome is with the technology review. For instance, like I said, if the topic is about oncology center, you should, let's say, provide information, what is the latest or the current stage of the technology in oncology. If your project in developing, let's say, a laboratory system, and then you should come also with the technology review about the laboratory devices and so on. It's different. And of course, here, they expect also you should come with the initial list, not final list, but let's say equipment list, like from the need analysis. And they expect also that you come with the cost estimate. And maybe if the development of the project will be done on the, let's say, not in one investment time, maybe also you have to provide them with roadmap acquisition. For instance, on the first year, you propose to acquire this technology, second year, and so on and so on. That I call it with the technology acquisition roadmap. And if you are working for the team that design the master plan, more detailed planning on the healthcare project, basically they expect that the customer or the client expect you with the come with equipment list more specific, especially for the large project like hospital project. I think you should come with the list that really mention about the list of equipment room by room. And second document that is expected from you as clinical engineer is you should also provide them with the specification. For instance, for the PCR, like Pak Holis, let's say, talk on the previous slide, in the market, you will see not only one provider, you will find maybe 2, 3, 4, 5, or maybe more provider. And the question is, with the technology is fit to the hospital need, and to support them, to help hospital or to help your client with the right equipment, you should write the specification. And again, maybe in this stage, some equipment has been delayed and other equipment has been added as new list, and then you have to update also the cost estimate. On the planning stage, before the development of the healthcare facilities, as also in other project planning, not only healthcare planning, there is stage they call it detailed engineering design. And as a consultant for this project, as a biomedical engineer, as a clinical engineer for this project, you are expected to contribute with more detailed work. Still the same, maybe equipment list by room, but you have to come also with the bill of quantities, more specific, how many unit, the device for this room. And then, some technology, especially big devices like X-ray, maybe also some laboratory equipment, some surgical department, they need let's say detailed sitting position. Where should be located? Where should be installed? And therefore, in close working with the architect and civil engineer, you have to draw what I call it room preparation drawing. We'll talk detail about the requirement for civil work, the requirement for mechanical electrical work, and also the requirement for architectural. And still, in this stage, as clinical engineer, you should also provide your client or your customer with more or with detailed written specification. The reason for that is you should help them to get what they want. I'll make some let's say illustration with the from the automotive, from the let's say the car. Assume that customer want to have 7-seat car for their purpose, and basically many automaker, many auto manufacturer could provide them. But the question is, which the customer want to have, which car that customer want to buy, and to reflect the requirement, the need from the customer, the only way to do it that you write on detailed specification. And of course, finally, as a consultant for this project, you should convert the technology that you propose to the cost. I think that's all for now, and then maybe we can go for discussion. And now, Paredi, please, maybe you may lead the question and answer session.
Okay, thank you, Pak Ahya, for the presentation, for introducing us to some aspects on clinical engineering, hospital technology management, and various aspects, also not hospital, health technology management, yeah, on various aspects about economic and financial and management of health technology. So not only the engineering aspect. This is maybe some aspects which we here at SGU, well, we are maybe had uh, some exposure to it, but not really that deep. So maybe I would like to invite the students to ask some questions, maybe especially those seniors who will hopefully graduate next semester. If you have any questions related to this, because this is very much related to the actual condition in our country, where we can contribute in the betterment of our hospitals and clinics, yeah, through the clinical engineering aspect from the biomedical engineering as in general. Okay, semester 8 students, please. Otherwise, the lecturers, Pak Maruli, Pak Aulia, or Pak Kholes, or Pak Paulus, if you have any question, you are also welcome to throw your question to Pak Ahya.
Pak Ayar.
Yes,
Hello.
please. Yeah, yes,
Yeah.
please. Yeah.
Thank you for your presentation. Nice presentation. I will ask you actually, what is the role of clinical engineering in our in Indonesian at the time? Can you explain a little bit regarding the clinical engineer association, what you have in Indonesian, of not, and also is it good for our student to see the possibility to see the future of our engineer? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Pak Maruli. That's right.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Pak Maruli. Actually, I have other slide that I think I sell already during my visit to SGU when I share my experience with Pak Dedi and team. But maybe it's not easy to switch from this slide to that slide. Let's talk about the how many, let's say, clinical engineer is needed, let's say, to support our country. To get the sum number, basically we could start with to do some analysis about, let's say, the number of hospital. Currently, there are about 3,000 hospital in Indonesia, consisting of private and public hospital. And the number of private hospital is bigger than public hospital. So more than 1,500 is private hospital, and less is public hospital. And if you ask me whether they need clinical engineer and not, and I would say very easy, yes, they need it. And remember, during my initial presentation, I showed to you about the current situation on the healthcare technology management in the hospital. This slide. Yes, this one.
Mm-hmm.
So you see, hospital is struggling with the organization, with the inventory, with the procedure of inspection of the medical devices is using, testing of medical devices, and preventive maintenance. And here is very clear that hospital need any kind level of engineer. And you might know that right now hospital, let's say, also have some technician, especially some student who graduate from the Medical Electronic Academy, ATEM, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and electromedic technician. Uh, is it, let's say, knowledge by Ministry of Health as a healthcare professional? This is also good. But again, on my experience, when I work in the hospital, and also based on my assessment, when I visited many hospitals in Indonesia as a consultant, I see there is gap between their capability and the hospital need or the hospital expectation. The director of the hospital, needs support for, let's say, any kind of level of engineering support, not
Mm-hmm.
technician support. Is the point. And unfortunately, the supply and demand, it doesn't meet right now. Because till now, Ministry of Health is only, let's say, welcome, yeah, engineer in the healthcare environment if you are graduated from the Medical Electronic Academy. But on the reality, like I said before, that hospital need engineer. But again, this case, on my opinion, is, let's say, difficult situation is only happen for private hospital. Oh, sorry, for public hospital. Because for private hospital, I believe they will act more based on their need. And I know some biomedical engineer is work in the hospital environment, in private hospital environment, and I appreciate for that. So I think maybe some of your senior has already contributed. But I know there is also some, let's say, economic, let's say, um, barrier. What I mean with economic barrier is salary barrier, I would say. I know that if you prepare work for, let's say, other industries, some student will get better paid rather than if they work for hospital environment. And I know this barrier. So I hope, let's say, this situation could be better. And then you know that hospital need biomedical engineer, but hospital also should welcome clinical engineer. Thank you, Pak Maruli.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Hasan. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Maruli and Pak Ahya. Are there any other questions? Pak Kholis, maybe related
Yeah,
to
Pak Ahya,
COVID?
nice to see you again, Pak. So I was just wondering about, we oftenly talk about having a service at SGU and also maybe privately for instrumentation calibration, because I learned that Indonesia is still lack of these facilities or services. So what is really actually the problem? Why not too many people get involved in this kind of services, Pak? Thank you, Pak.
Thank you. A very good question. I like to get this question. And I come to the let's say very stick answer. The hospital commitment to budget for this cost. And this the big gap that I see between us, Indonesia, and other developed countries. In developed countries, hospital, let's say, provide sufficient budget to do some job inspection, to do some job maintenance and calibration. And in Indonesia, I know that I did some research also. You know, from the point of economic engineering analysis, usually hospital should spend at least 4% from their inventory, but on the reality, they invest less more than 2%. And this, let's say, block, let's say, this economic commitment or this, let's say, financial commitment really block the chemical engineer or the application of good health technology management.
Isn't it a mandatory, but for hospital to have these services?
Yes, it's mandatory. You are right. It's mandatory, but again, it's bargaining. You know,
Oh.
if you have a look more detail to, let's say, hospital financial structure, does no matter is private or public hospital, they really, let's say, spend uh, less money to, let's say, this medical devices, services and maintenance. And this is the big gap that I see.
Okay, so there is no stick and carrot or law enforcement for this type of regulation yet, yeah, Pak, yeah?
Yeah, you are right. So it's very hard, you know, to see this, but this is the reality. Unfortunately, I know it. As I said before, I am consulting for Ministry of Health, and I spoke this topic many times, but they always said, you know, they have some priority again. Let's say, for instance, their priority is this, and this. But basically, personally, I don't accept this, let's say, argumentation. But you know, on the reality, who decide?
Okay, thank you, Pak. Yes,
You are
it's now
welcome.
very clear, Pak.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pak Kholis, and also Pak Ahya for the answer. Maybe other questions from the students? Samuel, Andrew?
Ya Pak, ada Pak.
Yes, please.
Halo Pak Ahya.
Yeah. Hello, Samuel. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation, Pak. Pak, I wanted to ask regarding the possibility of employment as a clinical engineer in Indonesia, itu apakah setiap rumah sakit sudah tanda kutip maksudnya kayak membuka lowongan tersebut, dan kedua maksudnya kayak how do we actually apply to be a clinical engineer there? Is there like do I come in and submit like my resume like, hey, I want to be a clinical engineer here, or how does it work? But
Thank you. There are two possibility. Basically, for the public hospital, the government hospital, I mean, like also military hospital, they open recruitment. Yeah, they open recruitment.
okay.
It is yearly. It's yearly, and then you may consult to MOH. You may consult also to directly to the hospital. But for the private hospital, what I would suggest is you submit directly. You submit your CV and so on. Because I think it's quite rare that I read, let's say, vacancy for clinical engineer is published in newspaper. But I don't know. Today is, let's say, we work close with the internet age. Whether it's, let's say, also posted in Instagram, in Facebook. Unfortunately, I don't have it, so I have no idea.
I see. But okay. I have another question, but
Yeah, please.
for the live implementation, maksudnya kayak implementasi asli dalam medical engineering kan Bapak bilang sudah dilaksanakan kan di beberapa rumah sakit di Indonesia. Can you give us like a certain example, like for example, the name of the hospital and what exactly did they do and what did they improve? Is there such data available you can share
Yes.
perhaps?
Yes, of course. So what I would suggest is you may learn, for instance, in Jakarta from the public hospital that I know they, let's say, implement quite well on my opinion about this health technology management is Dharma is Hospital and Harapan Kita Hospital, as well as also Persahabatan. But I could, let's say, make some recommendation. If you need to contact, let's say, them, I could also provide. Maybe through Pak Dedi. Yeah. In Central Java, I could recommend Semarang, and then in Yogyakarta, I could recommend Yogyakarta, and in West Java, I could recommend Hasan Sadikin for public hospital. Yeah, for private hospital, I think maybe Pertamina. I could recommend that I know them. Siloam, I don't know. I have no contact with them.
Oh, thank you very much, but I will certainly look into that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Samuel, Andrew, and also thank you for the answer, Pak Ahya. Any other question? Maybe we have another 5 minutes. From the second semester, Biomedical Engineering semester 2, Anjali, who else here? Andy or Patricia? Maybe Pak Aulia has questions regarding.
Yeah.
No question. Okay.
Pak Dedi, thank you very much. Pak Ahya, thank you for the presentation. I just want to ask about the ventilator. I know that developing a medical device take times, and also do the calibration or the quality controls also need to be take care in mind. But how in this rapid or in this time that we can or you are creating the ventilator? Thank you, Pak.
Okay.
Boleh nanya nggak saya, Pak? Pak Dedi?
Ya, Pak Paulus.
My question is to Pak ini ya. Ranking the country of origin of medical devices itu from German or from France, from Swiss, yang rankingnya yang paling bagus yang mana, Pak?
Okay, thank you, Pak Paulus. So, Pak Ahya, there are two questions. One from Pak Aulia regarding the rapid development of medical device in this crisis time, and second question from Pak Paulus regarding the ranking of the best performance of medical devices, the country of origin of the medical devices.
Okay, thank you. The first question is, I think the best way to achieve the goal to, let's say, develop and manufacture emergency ventilator and in very tight cycle time is, first is you have to develop your ventilator together with medical physicists, with physician, with medical doctor. That's my suggestion. Because if you design, or if this device designed by engineer only, later on the next stage you have to come to get let's say some feedback, some judgment from the medical doctor or physician. And also, this medical devices ventilator is high risk, let's say, classified as high risk medical devices. And then the requirement for these high risk medical devices is more than other devices. And you have to test also this device on the real clinical environment, I mean, apply to the patient. But before that, you apply your devices to the patient. Basically, you have to pass your ventilator with laboratory tests, and let's say also with other phantom devices. And I think right now what good news is, we as developer, we could collaborate with BPFK, yeah, Balai Pengaman Fasilitas, and they have devices, phantom devices to test our device. So we are on the safe way before we bring our devices directly for using into the patient. You may test it with the phantom. I think this is an opportunity.
Thank you, Pak. It's very clear.
Okay, and come to the question. It's very subjective. I mean, it's not easy to me to answer this question. Let's say which country produce the best medical devices. Of course, I may say personally that German is one of, let's say, very well known as the best manufacturer for medical devices, but you may not say at all. For instance, in the medical imaging, basically some, let's say, leading manufacturer. Not only from Germany, Siemens of course from Germany, Philips from Netherlands, GE from USA, and Toshiba from Japan. But please be advised. Today there is no single country produce one devices. For instance, Toshiba is not 100% made in Japan. GE is not 100% made in USA. Also, Siemens is not 100% made in Germany. So it's really collaboration between many countries. And this is the point. So on my opinion, for the future, I see that the opportunity for new, let's say, biomedical engineer is really to work in the international environment. That's I suggest you, let's say, maybe to focus to some student. I mean, to focus to certain capacity, certain capability, and then what I would say is also, please look at to the global environment, not only to the local environment. And remember, during my time I work abroad from 1919 to 2007, I was exposed to the European, let's say, engineer community, to the North American engineer community, and I spent also my time in Canada. And I see there is big opportunity, for you as a new engineer to work in Canada, for instance. Really, I saw it, and I hope it's still there. And many engineers from India, from China, for instance, they work in the global environment, and very little engineer from Indonesia work in the global environment. For instance, when I worked for the German company, I was the only one. There is no other Indonesian nation who work for this company in the global environment or in the headquarters. When I travel to Italy, to Netherlands, to other European country, to America, to Canada during my duty, I didn't meet, let's say, any other Indonesian engineer in this field, of course, because I know other engineer work for other field. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pak Ahya, for the very clear answers to all the urgent questions from our students and our lecturers as well. Thank you very much for your time. We wish that you could spend more time later somewhere in the future, yeah, to give also to share more experience to us, so that our students can take benefit of it, and then also excel more as graduates, as biomedical engineer graduate, as well as a clinical engineer. So as a closing, I would like to request everyone, including Pak Ahya, to show your video. So I will take screen shot. Yeah. So as a token of our meeting, so
I
as
have
our
to
report. Yeah.
okay, a little bit to struggle. You know that I work from the remote, not from the front of my notebook. So one moment, please. Maybe
Yes.
I can just see.
Okay. The students also as well. Please show your faces. Then I will take the green screen and give this as a report.
Okay,
Thank
Pak
you, Pak
Didi,
Ahya.
can you see my face? Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Asad,
Thank you.
Daniel, Anjali, Samantha, Andi, Leticia, Pak Aulia. Okay, we are still waiting another 5 minutes. Okay, Patricia. Wait a while.
Hilang saya ya.
Anjali,
Halo, Pak.
Leticia, Daniel.
Sir.
Iya, Pak.
Show up your face for a while, your video. So because I will take picture, print screen from this. Just about 1 minute, 2 minutes, less than 1 minute. Okay, Anjali, no, okay, no problem lah. So, Pak Ahya is gone. Screen, Pak Ahya, can you show again? Yes,
Okay.
belum tadi belum Pak.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay, please.
1, 2, and 3. Okay, and 1, 2, okay. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Works.
Thank you, Pak Didi. Thank
This
you
I will
all
end the
attendance.
meeting.
See you
Oke,
again
terima
ya.
kasih Pak Ahya, Pak Dedi
Oke.
semuanya.
Terima
Bye.
kasih, Pak
Bye-bye.
ya. Terima kasih.
Bye-bye.
Terima kasih Pak Ahya.
Terima kasih Pak Ahya ya.
Terima kasih.